And it's 10 a.m. right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning live from Channels HQ. I'm Ladi Williams and hope your morning is going great. Let's check in on the global commodities market now, starting with oil market. We see oil prices fell for a second day today after a surprise rise in U.S. crude inventories stoked demand concerns on heels of weaker than expected economic data from the United States and China. That's the world's two biggest oil consumers. Brent crude futures slipped 49 cents to $74.42 a barrel, while U.S. WTI crude was down 55 cents to $70.84 a barrel. U.S. crude stockpiles rose by about 3.6 million barrels in the week ended May 12th, according to market sources citing American Petroleum Institute figures. And also 7 analysts were polled by Reuters and had expected a 900,000 barrel drawdown. Markets are closely following any new steps on expanding sanctions on Russia by the group of 7 leaders when they meet in Japan on May 19th through the 21st. To the edible oil market now, Malaysian palm oil futures that slipped today to the lowest in 2 weeks, weighed down by expectations of rising production amid lackluster demand, but a weakening ringgit limited losses. The benchmark palm oil contract FCPOC3 for August delivery on the Bursa Malaysia derivatives exchange fell 1.76% to $765.73 a ton in early trade. So a lot of volatility still seen in that market. And to some news now, the International Monetary Fund says countries across sub-Saharan Africa have recorded about 8% depreciation of their currencies since January 2022. According to the Washington-based fund, the depreciations across the region were largely driven by external factors, including interest rate hikes in the United States. Also, foreign exchange earnings took a hit as demand for the region's exports dropped because of the economic slowdowns in major economies. At the same time, high oil and food prices pushed up import costs in 2022. The IMF states that about half of the countries in the region had budget deficits exceeding 5% of GDP in 2022, putting pressure on their exchange rates. And as part of measures to protect local inventions, the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation, Dr. Olorunniyi Mamara, has recommended the banning of all foreign goods that can be produced locally in Nigeria. Addressing State House correspondents at his 71st ministerial media briefing, Dr. Mamara expressed regret over the underutilized research works and inventions gathering dust in the various agencies due to lack of investors. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mizoke, reports.
The nation's science, technology and innovation sector comes under the spotlight at the 71st weekly ministerial briefing in the State House.
Thank you very much.
The minister is categorical about the correlation between research and the level of development it stimulates, but made no bones about his regret over the underutilized research works and the fate of inventions by Nigerians.
It will interest you that virtually all our agencies have come up with one invention or the other. But the challenge has always been taking these research outputs to the market. There are so many outputs that are still gathering dust on the shelves in various agencies. We are also looking at how we can compel, as it were, maybe through legislation, that once these things are available, and they are, particularly if they are patent, because we need to protect the intellectual property of the inventors, then we can just push them to market.
He raises the challenge of the prevailing attitude of embracing more foreign-made goods, proposing a ban.
Again, I think government will need to really come hard in terms of maybe total banning, as it were, of things that we have capacity to do locally. That is where nationalism comes in. So we are pushing, we appreciate that, but we are not holding our arms because it's not the best for us in this circumstance.
In spite of funding as a protracted issue, he asserts that the ministry has taken notable steps through technology to advance food production and security.
one of our agencies came up with a kind of device that you can know the kind of imprint on ground and where it is coming from.
Now, aside pushing for more investment towards upscaling space science technology, particularly in schools, the ministry has also assisted Nigerians acquire up to 379 patent certificates. The ministry now wants owners of softwares in the country to train more Nigerians in this sphere, particularly to develop capacity and foster effective competition. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Now to our first conversation. Well, Nigeria's manufacturing sector shrank for the second month in a row in March's cash scarcity in Africa's biggest economy hampered private sector activity. But how can the incoming government harness the potential in Nigeria's manufacturing industry? We're talking agenda setting here. Joining me now is Mr. Duro Kute, CEO Spectra Industries, joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So it's been quite a tough year so far with central bankers globally and right here in Nigeria trying to rein in inflation, a very stubborn inflation that doesn't seem to be abating anytime soon. And we've seen them raise rates from 2022 up to 2023, talking about global central bankers. So I want to know how you manufacturers are managing, with this tight liquidity in the system and the expensive cost of borrowing.
In manufacturing these days, it's as if we are using our savings to still stay in business with the hope that it will soon be better. Because if we abandon it now, it will be difficult to go back to it. And that's what is happening. And central bank is not assisting manufacturers. They said they had intervention fund. Please ask central bank who got the intervention fund, then at what rate? Because someone approached me for 6% to his own pocket before I could be assisted to get intervention fund. And getting facility from BOI to procure machinery, we still need to go to central bank for foreign exchange. They don't give us the foreign exchange at the official rate because there's always someone in between, even inside the central bank. And the money we are talking about is like if we're able to get at official rate, businesses will grow. But now that we are not getting it, and they borrow the change are the one getting it, then it makes life more difficult for the manufacturers.
So basically, there are interventions by the CBN, but accessing it
is difficult.
But there are interventions.
There are interventions.
And some manufacturers could say, they have been able to access it.
Some, maybe those who have enough to pay extra. And not all of us, especially people in the SME sector, that could actually boost employment. They are not getting it.
So looking at, this FX situation right now, we have multiple windows, and you did talk about not being able to, access. There's always that middleman there that makes it hard,
more expensive.
Yes, for you to get, FX at this time. What would you like to see? We have an incoming, government. What would you like to see in that FX market that you think would help manufacturers?
I think the CBN needs overhauling, total overhauling, in a way that we make facilities available to those they are meant for. And the incoming administrators should see manufacturing as a priority. And whoever else the Ministry of Industry should actually be someone who has tasted manufacturing before, someone who has seen the suffering in manufacturing, and someone who will be between the that can influence the foreign exchange going to manufacturers. And you know, in manufacturing, money, foreign exchange, they are very important. The another thing is raw materials. Are they getting raw materials? Are we getting raw materials at the price that we can do and make profit? One, I'm in agro-allied industry, meaning that all my raw materials are sourced locally, and they are sourced from the farm. Those farmers, do they have rest of mind on the farm?
So security is another issue.
Because of security issues. So the incoming administration should first focus on the farmers. Let them be secured. Let them produce profitably. And again, ban exportation of raw materials from Nigeria and encourage production at least to produce up to semi-finished. Because when you look at the industry, the giant ones in Nigeria, what were they doing? How did they build their own capital? They build their own capital by importing semi-finished products and just finish it up here.
Because that makes it cheaper.
It makes it cheaper. You know, we were doing pineapple juice before, but because the big ones could bring concentrate, add water, and sell to our people, makes that line unprofitable. And at the same time, we make soya powder. The soya powder is a semi-finished product. And many of these industries are importing from US, from China, from South Africa. When we started our own, we showed to the bigger industry, and they were interested. And since 2018, we've been supplying the bigger industries and the bakers with defatted soya powder, which actually makes their bread better and give them more yield.
So they don't have to import that. They
don't have to import that. Okay. And when you say export expansion grant given to those who export, even who export raw materials, they are getting grant for that. What of our own case, whereby we reduce the level of foreign exchange going out by producing in Nigeria and saving Nigeria millions of dollars? So what do we get?
So you should actually get the focus at this time, since you're the one taking out less dollars, you know, the foreign exchange that we critically need at this point. But looking at all the headwinds in the manufacturing industry right now, does that industry need a bailout?
The industry actually needs a bailout. We need to be encouraged. How much was diesel before? And no electricity, we had to continue using diesel at the price of 800 naira per liter. Then how do we break even? So it's as if the reserve that we had are being used in order to stay in business. And look at the effect. It becomes difficult in the market to increase your price.
And because consumers are strained,
Yes.
at this time, and raising prices will be, even though we've seen inflation at record highs right now. But now we're seeing the, federal government right now talking about proposing, banning foreign goods that can actually be produced right here in Nigeria. Let's say, that takes effect, immediately. What do we need to put in place to make sure that the manufacturers here can actually produce those goods with the same quality and affordable right here in Nigeria, the way it is right now?
Okay, number one thing is government should protect the SMEs in the sense that what we developed as SME, the big industries are coming to take it up and then use their power both in the market and the airspace to make sure that we don't sell.
How's that possible?
Right?
How do they make it hard for you to sell?
Okay. Sometimes someone was producing a product and a big industry have similar products. They went to the market to tell the distributor that they will give them generator if they don't buy that particular product.
That's quite an expensive incentive.
So it's, and the way this thing can be done, we look at other industries, other countries who are familiar with Asian tigers. How did they make it? They prevented multinationals from going into the industries that their locals are doing. It happened in India. I had the opportunity to be part of study group that went to Asia. And all these things are the things that are happening over there. And in Nigeria, sometimes I mention it to government officials that, look, the name Chin Chin is Nigeria. It was invented in Nigeria. Why are the multinationals now making Chin Chin?
Selling right here in Nigeria.
The man said we should change our business model from government official. Okay, look at pure water. Who started pure water?
Right here.
It was expected that the pure water manufacturer will grow to bottled water manufacturer, but the multinationals took it over and prevented the locals from growing. For example, if I started with pure water and I'm now doing well and start making bottles water, later on I will make juice, I will make this, I will make that. But these people came and prevented. That's what is preventing growth of industry in Nigeria.
So at this point, new administration coming in and saying, what are the first 5 things you want the incoming government to do in the first 100 days to benefit the manufacturing sector?
First, central bank. 2, security on the farm. 3, protection for SME. And
protection means nationalization at this point.
Protection for SME, protection for farmers, protection for the manufacturing industries generally. And then help us fix the roads.
First 100 days, that's what you want to see?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, let's hope the incoming government is actually listening at this time. Thank you so much, Mr. Duro Kutei, CEO, Spectra Industries Limited. It was great having your perspective today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, so we'll take a break now. When we come back, AFEX Commodities Market Update is next. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning. All right, let's get a sense of trading happened on AFEX Commodities Exchange for the last trading week. There was mixed performance across key indicators. Turnover that rose by 1.53% from 3.92 billion naira to 3.98 billion naira. Also an increase of 8.10% in the volume of contracts traded. Also seeing is a decrease in the number of deals traded. That is down by 20%, closing at 88. The AFEX Commodity Index rose by 0.58%, closing the week at 482.07 index points. The AFEX Export Index that performed negatively, falling to 230.21 points from 230.31 points. For the volume of contracts traded, saw an increased volume across maize and paddy rice. Meanwhile, across export commodities, sorghum, sesame, ginger, and wheat maintained at 274, 1,247, and 923 and 380 naira respectively, while paddy rice rose by 0.13% and closed at 339 naira 97 kobo. Other export commodities saw a decline. Soybean that fell by 0.97% and closed at 314 naira 9 kobo. Cocoa that fell by 0.22% and closed at 2,074 naira. Cashew nut also fell by 0.19% and closed at 613 naira 93 kobo. Across grain commodities, we see maize that rose by 3.77% and closed at 247 naira 11 kobo per kilogram. For more now, you can get more details on the website africaexchange.com, and you can follow the social media at AFEX Nigeria and at COMEX by AFEX if you want more details and if you want to trade commodities right there. All right, so earlier this month, Marble Capital launched the first Security and Exchange Commission approved Halal Commodities Fund. The fund is an open-ended mutual fund that invests in Sharia-compliant securitized commodities. For more now, joining me is Ismail Yahaya, Commodities Trading and Asset Manager, Marble Capital Limited. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Morning, Ladi. Nice to have you.
So can you provide details of this fund? How does it differ from the traditional commodities fund? And why did Marble Capital decide to launch at this point?
Well, this is the first commodities fund that has been launched in Nigeria, so that's already unique on its own, right? It gives access to opportunities to invest in the securitized commodities traded on the FX exchange, fixed income instruments that are commodities inclined, and equities of companies on the NGX. So in the whole, it's a unique, different kind of fund. It's opening up to alternative forms of investments that probably investors had not been opportune to before now. So we look at it as something new, something progressive. And it also appeals to the religiously conscious or people that have a bias towards investing in things that don't meet their religious principles, right? That's why it's an allowed commodity fund. So we're telling you that it's basically taking all the Islamic principles, Sharia principles to heart and ensuring that the investments are compliant with these principles.
And what are the various components, of the fund, and who can invest in them?
So the fund is open to every kind of investor, individuals, HNIs, retail, pension funds, asset management companies. It's mainly, we have three main asset classes. We'll look at it from securitized commodities. Those are commodities stored in warehouses that are traded on the exchange. Also commodities-linked equities, the likes of Presco, Como Oil, Dangote Sugar. Also fixed income instruments, right? We know about the Sukuk. We can invest in commodities linked to Sukuk. And I must point out here that it's not just agri-commodities we are talking about. We're looking at, as the market expands and progresses, precious metal, energy, oil, gas, and the likes. So we're trying to expand the space, basically.
Yeah, quite a lot you're doing there. But why did Marble Capital decide on a halal commodities fund? And what is its relevance to the market?
So it's relevant in terms of the fact that we're trying to create more financial inclusivity, right? We're trying to get more people into the financial space. It's part of the CBN's trajectory. Is also part of what SEC wants, a lot of people to come into the space, right? So we're looking at an allowed commodity fund is giving access to not just limiting it to a particular group of people, but giving access to expanding the group for more people to be able to participate. And the timing is right because we've been, if you look at what AFEX has done for the past few years, right? Commodities has begun to gain a bit of traction, and we feel like it is the right time for people to also take advantage of investment. It's an alternative investment. It gives you access to not your traditional forms of investment, right? So we think there's no better time than now for us to launch these funds, and we hope the market will accept it as it is.
And when will the fund be available to the public, and how can investors actually subscribe?
So we launched last Wednesday, May 10th. It's currently open to the public, right? You can subscribe by visiting the Marble Capital Limited website. That's marblecapitalltd.com, and you fill your subscription form, and it's a straightforward process basically, and we'll get you feedback as soon as possible.
And how much subscribers are you expecting?
Well, if the whole of Nigeria can invest, then that's going to be good. The minimum investment is 50,000 naira, right? So it's you can get 500 units for 50,000 naira, 100 units, 100 naira per unit, and then you can get in multiples of 100 naira. And
I'm guessing there's no maximum, no ceiling to how much you can invest.
Well, it's an open-ended fund right now, and it's the target size is 3 billion. All right, so if we beat that, then we could seek expansion from the SEC.
All right, I want you to show me the money now. What's the profit potential here?
So we can see, I mean, if you've always been getting AFEX weekly commodity updates, and if you compare it to what you see on the NGX and all-share index, you see that the performance is good, right? You're targeting 15-20% conservatively annually, right? And that's the mutual fund itself is not giving you a fixed income, but it's looking at that region, and hopefully it performs better, because what you see with different commodities over the last 3-4 years, you see that performance has been progressive. So we expect that the mutual fund will be able to take advantage of this performance.
Yeah, progressive, and I'm hoping, that we can beat inflation. Investors can actually beat inflation at 22.22%.
Yeah.
That's quite a tall order there. But thank you so much, Ismail Yahaya, asset manager at Marble Capital Limited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ladi.
All right, we'll take a moment now. And talking about beating inflation, let's take a look at what's happening on the NGX. And we have Anyete Eda with the details. Good morning, Anyete. I guess the deal right now is to try and beat inflation.
Yes, but beating inflation, and what you call your hedge against inflation, which means what you use in terms of trying to stave off inflation, likes of commodities, the likes of stocks, as well as
maybe we should talk about hedging before even beating inflation.
Well, hedging. Nigeria, we don't really take the hedging that serious, particularly hedge funds. But
so many asset classes have claimed to be that fantastic hedge, but some are quite lackluster with this kind of inflation. At this point.
Particularly, Nigeria's inflation environment is not, at the same time, not too encouraging. I must tell you that, and of course,
22.22%.
22.2. That's a quadruple 2. The figure is kind of fascinating when you look at the number, but at the same time, it's a little bit lower when you compare to what one of our economic analysts or economic experts was projecting. He projected about 22.67%, but at the same time, 22.22%, that's an 18-year high, and the projection is that the inflation rate is still going to go higher due to the impact of higher food prices as well as other basic consumption by Nigerians. So that's it for that.
All right, let's see who's beating inflation on the NGX.
Well, for now, I would tell you that the NGX is in the green. So let me just give you that within the next couple of seconds. 22 points over 188.04 basis points. That is what the index of the Nigerian Stock Exchange gained at the close of Tuesday's trading session. That's about 0.36%. And the figure there, 52,419.33. That's the index figure, which is still on the high side, well above the 50,000 points. So, and then in terms of the Naira gain, we had over 102 billion Naira, and this is largely driven by share price of Nigerian breweries, GTCO, and 24 others. So that has brought the year-to-date performance of the market to about 2.28%. Now, let's take a look at the bigger picture on the sectoral performance. What you see, the GTCO, the impact of that, as well as some other banking components, lifted that index by more than 1% at the close of Tuesday's trading session. Take a look at the green colors across the consumer goods, industrial goods, as well as the insurance sector. But the only laggard we saw profit-taking was the oil and gas sector, and so that was down by 0.72%. Now, let's take a look at the top trades. In terms of the trading, the amount of trade, the volume of transactions carried out there was down by around 7.9%. for the activity chart there, while the value was in the green as well as the number of deals. Now, UBA was the most traded stock by volume, and then Zenith was the most traded by value at 1.40 billion Naira. So that's what you see on your board there, 7.91%. That's the volume of increase for the total volume of shares traded, while the value was up by 21.25% at 21.25 billion Naira. For the number of deals there, that's more than 1.82% in contrast to what you had on Monday. Now, let's flip over to the fixed income market, where we see it was a bearish sentiment for the market. The average yield there, it expanded by 6 basis points to about 14%. But when you take a look at your board there, the 27th of March 2050 paper, it had the highest number of deals there. It had 9 deals at a value of 18.20%, and that's the major contributor to what you see here, 44.97 billion Naira to be precise, and then the total number of deals carried out there was 40. Let's move over to the Treasury bills market. For the Treasury bills market, it's another quiet day of trading, which is coming a day after the FGM bond auction for May, where the results were released. And of course, the investors were really, really cautious at the same time, which was the date that the MBS released the April inflation data for Nigeria's inflation, which came out about 2.22%, up from 22.04%. So now when you take a look at your board there, it's an equal for the 14th of March paper 2024 and the 22nd of February 2024 paper, with just both of them across board at equals of 1 deals. But in terms of valuation, separate valuations, 10 billion and 3 million, which is cumulative 13 billion Naira. Let's move over to the open market operations, what you call the OMO. The OMO, it was slightly an increase in contrast to what you had before. But for the money market, we saw that the overnight lending rate, it expanded by about 25 basis points to 14.1%, and that's because the system liquidity had reduced all the way from 35.05 billion Naira to about 34.77 billion Naira. For the open repo rate, it closed flat at 12.13%. So that's it for that market. For the central bank special bills, we also had a little bit of improvement, but not too much. Now, to give us more picture, I don't know if we have him there. Let's talk to Bosun Obembe, a fixed income dealer at Access Bank, to give us more details about the fixed income market. Thank you for joining us, Bosun.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I know I was doing most of the talking, but now I leave the talking to you, the expert there. Can you give us details of the FGM bond auction carried out on Monday? Tell us more about that.
So for the auction that happened on Monday, just like you mentioned, the previous week we had a lot of system liquidity, but on Friday, the CBN took most of this system liquidity through the CRR and then the FS auction. So what happened on Monday was the stop rate on the short end of the short end instrument, which is 2020 and 2032. We saw a 10 basis point increase when you compare to the April auction. On the 2042 papers, that was 29 basis point increase in yield. So the stop rate closed at 15.69 when you compare to 15.4 of the previous auction in May. However, on the 2050, which is the longest dated paper, the rate remained flat at 15.8%. There was no movement in the stop rate. The total amount that the DMO was able to raise through this auction is about 545 billion. When you look at the bid to cover, it wasn't really interesting when you look at the short term, where the bid to cover was actually lower than what we saw at the previous auction. The reason for this, the low bid to cover, was the illiquidity in the system. That you mentioned, the system opened with 35 billion yesterday, and that is the rule by the central bank that at the settlement day of a bond, you are not meant to come to the CBN window to access fund. So that's the reason why we have that low bid to cover. So for today, the settlement is happening today, and the market is expected, we see some kind of a bearish trend today, because most banks will be looking to actually sell some of their winnings at the auction to raise Naira liquidity.
Okay, Bosun, I'm kind of curious. I know that the FGM bond auction for May is not impressive in contrast to what you had in the previous for the previous auctions, which were more like oversubscribed. And in over a week from now, we'll be having another. By next week, we'll be having the MPC meeting, as well as next month we'll be having both another bond auction as well as another inflation figure. So what's the likely outcome? What's your expectation for the next bond auction coming up for the month of June?
So for the month of June, the what will determine where the rate will close will be the liquidity in the system, and by that time we will have had the new government coming in. Maybe given that the subsidy, which it was planned that it will be removed, but now we're having the clarity that it will still be retained. So meaning that more borrowing from the DMO coming probably in June. But next week, like you mentioned, we have an NTB auction happening next week. At the last NTB auction, the rate declined, not because the yield was attractive, because the 1 year paper closed at 8.9 at the last NTB auction. But for next week, given the illiquidity that we have currently in the system, so the next week auction for the NTB, we expect the rate to go up significantly. And on the inflation figure, like you mentioned, the last time we saw inflation as high as the 22 level was in 2004. The CBN has maintained its stance, is tightening stance. So maybe next week auction MPC meeting, that could be an increase in the MPR to curb the inflation that keeps rising.
Okay, so now we're in the midweek, Bosun. What's your expectation for the remainder of the week and the remaining 2 days this week? What direction do you see the yields tilting toward at the fixed income markets?
My expectation for the rest of the week is expect a bearish trend. People come to sell some of their winnings to actually raise liquidity. So I expect a bearish trend in the bonds market. At the same time, for the NTB auction, I expect a mixed sentiment. Most investors will be waiting for next week auction, where they can actually get higher yield, because the last auction was lower. It was below 10%, and when you compare this with inflation, the real return is negative. So I will expect some kind of sell-off so that people can pick up higher yield at the next NTB auction.
Okay, so thank you so much for your time on our program, Bosun. And of course, as usual, our eyes are always on the market. So that was Bosun Obembe, fixed income dealer at Access Bank. So now we move over to the unlisted securities markets. The unlisted securities market, the market index, it declined by about 0.35%. So this is what you see there. For the index, is just about 724.20 points, while the market capitalization of the unlisted securities market, that's the NESD OTC exchange, it's it lost about 5 billion naira to about 1 trillion naira. But when you take a look at the board of the activity chart, the total volume there, it also declined. It was down by 76.45%, which is what you see here, 1.5 million number of securities traded there. For the value, 25.41 million naira, while the dues was just 8, and the number of stocks traded there was just 2. It had 2 gainers and 1 loser. 2 gainers, that's Geofluids PLC, which was up by 8.53%, Friesland Campina, which was up by 0.4%, while the only loser there was Double One PLC, down by 9.80%. So, Ladi, that's it for the markets for Tuesday. I'm
wondering how the market's going to close for the midweek trading session this week. What do you see in your crystal ball?
I think, fingers crossed, I would expect the markets, there might be a little bit of profit taking, that's a give and take, that's for the equities market. But like our analyst said, is expecting bearish sentiment for the fixed income market, for the treasury bills market, and the bonds market. For the unlisted securities market, I'd expect a continued downturn there. That's what my crystal ball says.
Wow, quite a gloomy forecast there. Thank you so much, Anita.
Pleasure.
As Anita giving us the details for the local bourse right here in Nigerian fixed income markets. But let's take it to the UK now. Let's join Juliana right there. Great to have you, Juliana. So I see some news in the housing industry, housing sector in the UK. There we see the government is unveiling what is tagged a once-in-a-generation renting shake-up, including a ban on no-fault evictions. I guess that's a plus for tenants.
Good morning, Laddie. Yes, that is a plus for tenants. And you're right, it has been described as a once-in-a-generation rent. It's called the Rent Reform Bill, and we're expected it to be published today by Michael Gove, who is the Housing and Levelling Up Secretary. And really, it's just to overhaul renting in the UK, which has been rather difficult for some tenants over the past couple of years. Some temporary clauses and changes to evictions was put in place during the pandemic, but as soon as we started living with COVID, they were all ripped away, and now tenants are asking for more support. So this reform bill that will be announced in the Palace of Westminster is expected to affect about 11 million people living in this country, as well as 2 million landlords who are renting out their properties. And I think the big one, the one that the media in the UK have run with this morning, is Section 21, which is basically a part of your tenancy agreement that will give a landlord the opportunity to kick you out for no notice and for no reason whatsoever. I think a lot of people were surprised that Section 21 actually existed. Lots of people struggling at the moment with the cost of living crisis, effectively not paying their rent, and have been evicted through Section 21. Michael Gove, the housing minister, says that is going to be ripped away. But then there are also some pluses for landlords. So there is going to be a new section within contracts in England that does allow your landlord to evict you if you are a nuisance neighbour. So if you're somebody that causes a headache for your roommates or for your neighbours, you will be evicted. As I said, we don't actually have the bill yet. It is going to be published in Parliament today, but considering that rents are so high, it still costs a lot of money if you want to buy in the UK. I think a lot of people will be listening with a very open ear, because it is going to affect the vast majority of the people that live in this country.
Right, we'll definitely keep tracking that, the developing story right now. But I see some MPs are recommending to UK authorities to regulate cryptocurrency trading as a form of gambling rather than a financial service right there in the UK. How's this being digested over there?
Yeah, this is quite an interesting story, actually, particularly because the UK have got this kind of love-hate relationship with the crypto sector. I think one MP actually described it as a wild, wild west with no sheriff. I know you know more about the crypto sector than I do, but I think in the UK, Laddie, it's become an increasing problem for some individuals, particularly men, young men aged under 35, that are spending a vast amount of money trading trading crypto online, and it is yet to be regulated. And those groups of MPs, they form part of the Treasury Select Committee. They have been probing the crypto sector in the UK, and they have found this conclusion. They said that they do think it is a little bit like gambling, and they want Rishi Sunak and Chancellor Jeremy Hunt to be very, very careful about how they choose to regulate the sector, because they said if it does have government and Bank of England backing and it is a regulated industry, then some people could come under a false illusion that your money is safe. And we know that money isn't safe, because digital tokens have had a pretty tumultuous 18 months. Even Bitcoin, which flies the flag for cryptocurrencies, has shed lots of its gains over the past few months. So there are concerns. Also, as well, part of the report is information that was conducted by a gambling charity, and they said that in the past 18 months they are receiving a significant amount of phone calls from young men who are spending, I believe in the report there was a case of one guy who had spent £150,000 betting or trading, shall we say, on cryptocurrencies. He's lost all his money. So yes, charities do see it as gambling. This group of MPs that make up the Treasury Select Committee also see it as gambling. And this is going to be an important piece of information for the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, because of course we are supposed to be getting this digital pound, which isn't a crypto, but it is digital. So there are lots of suggestions about how the regulation can be championed, and we'll just wait to see, as we always wait and see, what the Chancellor has to say. But £150,000, that's a lot of money to lose.
That's a lot of money, and definitely not easy, making money in these markets right now. And definitely we know some people, believe you can come in here and just make life-changing money, but knowing how hard it actually is.
No.
Quite tough. Thank you so much, Juliana. Thank you.
Thank you.
And talking about the crypto market now, we see the world's largest cryptocurrency, that's Bitcoin, is under pressure, selling pressure after facing a rejection at the 30,000 level. I think market now sees neutral, 50 points. That's what we're seeing, showing that investors are not so greedy right now. We did touch greed, sometimes a few weeks ago, but now we've come back from that, heading to neutral, wondering what's next, for this market. Maybe back into greed, or maybe fear might be what we'll see next. Let's look at the top cryptocurrencies that we track in the market now. We see Bitcoin there trading at $26,965, down 0.26%, facing another rejection at the 27,000 level. Ethereum, that's still holding up the 1,800 level, adding 0.40%. On the flip side is adding there. BNB, the native coin for the Binance exchange, $310, down 0.38%. And we see XRP having got a jump this morning, 6.55%. I think they scored some points with their case against the SEC in the US. So we're seeing investors react to that positively, talking about XRP, 45 cents, big jump, about 7% this morning. So I guess the XRP army excited by this. Seen XRP trading at 45 cents this morning. Let's bring in Solomon Amunde now, financial market analyst. Hello, Solomon. Great to have you.
Good morning, Ladi. Good morning.
Good morning. So I saw a report this morning showed that Bitcoin's large whale addresses, they've accumulated about 84,897 Bitcoin in 5 weeks. Why are they accumulating so much Bitcoin? Is a price rally coming?
So basically what we see on chain is the accumulation from these whales, and so far, so like you said, they've hit almost 85,000 BTC being accumulated. And no doubt, if you look at the chart and also the trend, you notice since January, Bitcoin has been on an uptrend. And following what we have on the chart too, you notice the best place to accumulate is in the range that they have been accumulating, which is around $26,000. And the last time they did this much accumulation, which was January, we saw Bitcoin move by almost 30%. So it's only fair to say that we would expect something similar to happen, where they accumulate in this current range of around 26 and 27K dollars, and hopefully we'll see about a 10 to 20% rally on Bitcoin price.
Right, and I guess if you cannot be a whale, you might as well swim with them at this time. But I saw a research lobby group, they're showing, they've done some research, they're showing that blockchain technology could save TradFi, that's traditional finance, over $90 billion a year. What's the catch?
Yeah, that's one area that the traditional finance hasn't really explored so much, looking at making use of blockchain technologies to probably tokenize some assets, and it will also go a long way in the lending market too, which would also help in streamlining the collateral processes in derivatives market. So there's a whole lot to give in when the traditional finance can be able to synchronize with the blockchain world, and we are still looking forward to that. Let's not forget too that the tokenized market, blockchain tokenization market, is expected to hit almost $5 trillion by 2030. So we're still looking at how all of this can come together and how the traditional finance can do a good job in synchronizing with blockchain.
Yeah, everyone's seeing that big potential, with blockchain technology. But let's look at one of the cryptocurrencies we track here. We see XRP this morning, 45 cents, big jump, 6.98% this morning. Have they won the case in the U.S. against the SEC, or have they scored some kind of points? That's why we're seeing this rally.
Yeah. It is still actually quite fuzzy. They haven't gotten it clear of if they have won the case or not, but they're trying to make a statement that the case has been dragged for so long, and we know this case has been lingering for over 5 years now, so it's actually unfair to XRP. So they're just trying to push that, and by now it should have ended and the judgment should have been passed, but so far so good, nothing concrete yet. It's just speculations.
All right, let's look at, altcoins now. We've seen those meme coins, give incredible gains like Pepe, and we know how risky it is, trading meme coins in an already risky market at the time. But tell me now, what's on your radar, talking about altcoins? What are you holding long term?
If you're looking at the altcoins long term, I'm actually holding Origin token, basically because of they have so much focus on AI, making AI quite safe and usable in the blockchain space, and also providing data, Oracle services, basically. So Ori is one of my biggest bags, and I'm still holding CHR Chromia, which is also a blockchain, and that is doing a whole lot, including bringing reward assets to the blockchain space and also enabling huge gaming in the blockchain space, which is also a major industry that can bring in the next level of users to Web3. So these are like one of my two major bags above other bags too. Then I'm looking at the altcoins, or the meme coins rather. I'm actually looking at buying Bob, which is actually a token for the projects on Twitter that helps to give automated tweets. So I'm looking at a perfect entry for that, but I haven't backed it yet. I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not easy finding that perfect entry for most of these coins. But thank you so much, Solomon Munde, financial market analyst. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, we see the top gainers there. We see Decentraland, Mana, Metaverse. Maybe Metaverse might be back in the cards again, up 10.33%, double-digit gain this morning, 51 cents. And Render Token, 9.60%. Let's look at the top losers in the crypto market this morning. We see the top losers, Kava, that's had a good run. See some profit taking there, still down below that $1 level, 6.03%. So that's how the crypto market is looking this morning. Still looking for direction. Neutral is the sentiment right now. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to join us at 1:30 for Business Incorporated for more updates and developments in the world of business. You can watch this again on our YouTube channel. Flip over to YouTube, click on our videos, and you can watch all our productions. Thank you again for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.